But that's just another story.
Happens.
We'll get there. All right. Mm. Hmm?
We are still waiting on quorum, I think, unless somebody else joined. Oh, we might be there. We might be just short. So hold on. We need two more. And we need one more. Hey. Sign in over there. Just mark your name, grab your name tent and a stand, and then sit somewhere at the table. And get rid of the, since I've got it here. Okay, that gives us quorum. We can start when you're ready.
Good afternoon, members of the MAG Building Codes Committee. This meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. Please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members. Oops.
Cheryl Mullis representing Goodyear.
Here.
Adrian Allegria, Apache Junction. Adrian. You're muted, or you are here, though. Your face is here.
Sorry, I was muted. I was having a few problems with my computer.
Okay. David Norton or anyone from Avondale? Oh, there's David. David, are you with us? Okay, we can come back to him. Anyone from Carefree? Ben Carr, Cave Creek. Leray Hanley, Chandler. Brigham Bennett, El Mirage. Mark White, Florence.
Here.
Anyone from Fountain Hills?
This is Dave Norton from Avondale. Sorry, I'm kind of multitasking at the moment.
Larry Taylor, Gilbert.
Here.
Georgie Pavlovic, Gillen Glendale. Brian Bertucci, Litchfield Park. Dale Garcia, City of Maricopa.
Here.
Mark Sipes, County of Maricopa.
County, Mark Sipes here.
John Sheffer, Mesa. Chuck Ransom, Paradise Valley. Dennis Chase, Peoria.
Sorry, I'm here. Had a problem with settings.
Michael Abeg, Phoenix. Michael Williams, Queen Creek. Michael Clack, Scottsdale. Mike Baxley, Tempe.
Here.
Mike's section. Anyone from Tolleson? Kevin Bruce, Wickenburg. Gregory Arrington, Youngtown. Jackson Mole Home Builders Association.
Here.
And Vice Chair Carl Montgomery, Surprise.
Here.
Miss, what? I don't think they're on the committee. Oh. Mark White. Salt River Pima.
Yes, I'm here. I am no longer with Florence and with Salt River Pima.
That's where I made the mistake. Okay. Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, our first item is a call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. I have received no request to speak cards for this agenda item.
We have not gotten any requests, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Item number 3, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
We have a motion. I didn't see you made it.
Mike Bexley.
We have a motion by Mike Baxley and a second by Larry Taylor. We will have those participating in the meeting online now take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. This is to speed up the voting process. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn off their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so the staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. And I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online Those in favor say aye. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
Adrian Allegria.
Sorry, I have a difficult to turn off my camera right now.
What's your vote?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Okay, we will proceed to item number 4 is a presentation on Interstate 17 Anthem to Sunset Point Improvement Project. Here to present is Andrew Roth from ADOT. This item is for information and discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Andy Roth. I am with Arizona Department of Transportation, Northwest District. I'm the Assistant District Engineer. And this is one of the projects that I also monitor and oversee. So today's presentation, really just a brief overview of the I-17 improvements from Anthem Way to Sunset Point, the widening and flex lanes project. Some of the items will be, just go over just a brief overview, kind of a little bit of explanation of what the widening and flex lanes areas will look like, a brief update on the construction activities, and then, of course, if anybody has any questions. So under our contracting method under this project is a design, build, operate, and maintain. We actually do have an operate and maintain component of this project. So when the construction is finished, the developer team will be actually operating and maintaining the flex lanes for a period of 3 years. And that will give us time for training of our staff and the new technology that we'll be using on these flex lanes. So as far as the project owner, that will be us as ADOT. Working with us is our general engineering consultant firm of HDR, who is providing all of our construction oversight and inspection. The developer team that was selected for this project was the Kiewit Fan joint venture. And then various local subconsultants and firms. Size of this project is 23 miles, starting at Anthem Way up to the Sunset Point Rest Area, the TI. Included in that are really 2 different segments, 15 miles of it at the southern end. From Anthem to Coldwater up at Black Canyon City is a widening general purpose lanes, 1 new lane in each direction. The 8 miles of flex lanes will be on the southbound I-17 from Sunset Point down to Black Canyon City, including in that 10 bridge widenings, 2 bridge replacements. And what they didn't put on here was we actually have 1 deck replacement on the Bumblebee northbound bridge as well that we added to this contract. Some of the benefits that we're looking for come out of this, the enhanced safety, of course. Everybody knows that that segment between Black Canyon City and Sunset Point, especially on the northbound side on a Friday afternoon, is extremely congested with the trucks going up that 6% grade. Added capacity for the future, improved traffic flow, and then also supporting economic growth because this is one of our key commerce corridors in the state. Project timeline, and this one's a little bit condensed because actually that 2017 was the revised DCR after we actually completed the first DCR in 2015 for this and then came back and did a modified DCR looking at the flex lanes and more in depth on the components we were going to put into this project. So that our project timeline actually started more in 2009 when we started this DCR process. And then finally to the procurement of the developer team starting in 2019. And of course, that got extended because of the COVID. And then finally, we're able to select our team there in 2021. And that's, we started construction then in 2021 and 3-year contract basically. And then finally, we are right there at 2024 and hopefully finishing up here in 2025 with this project. So the widening between Anthem and Black Cane City. That general purpose lane, depending on which segment we're in, may be done on the median side or maybe on the outside. This is, since it is a developer-driven design, they get to choose the design, how they want to proceed with that, and balancing earthwork and other things. So that, but when it comes down to when it's opened up, you will not know which side we've actually completed on. Really, you can tell just now, right now, by going through the corridor, just because of where we're making the cuts. But that will be a seamless transition once that's all final paved out. As far as the flex lanes, like I said before, they are on the southbound side. We're leaving the northbound side up that hill alone for right now. Those lanes will be separated from the southbound by a concrete barrier. So these will not be just contiguous lanes where you can just get in and out of them. There are no exits on those flex lanes. So once you get on them at the bottom of the hill at Black Cane City, you will not be able to get off of them until you tie back in at the top of the hill at Sunset Point. And the same as when you're coming southbound, get on them at Sunset Point Rest Area, and then all the way past the Coldwater Road exit. So there will be no exits at Bumblebee, Coldwater, or Sunset Point for these flex lanes. And I think there should be a video on here. Mary, if you can kind of.
Sorry.
I think that was the real brief introduction to of how those will operate. The cross. Let's go to there. We go. So to go into a little more detail about what those components will look like on the crossover entrances, so you can see in the bottom right there that photo of it. They will be a dual lane entrance into those flex lanes. They are 2 lanes, so they are a left exit to get into them. Up on the upper left, those will be the gates, the swing gates that will either close them off or open as the flex lanes dictate what we need. As you approach that from those, they progressively get longer. So at first, that first gate will be short, only over the shoulder, and then they progressively get longer as they're closing, so that as traffic sees them closing, if there's somebody over there that shouldn't be, they can kind of get out of the way without hitting those gates. And they also have LED flashing arrows on them as well when they're in operation. That upper right picture that's the net barrier, the vehicle resting barrier. In the open position, you can just kind of barely see that is in the open position on that one. There's an actual net that's up at the top there that when it's closed, that net will drop down. And so if anybody wrong way gets into that vehicle resting barrier will stop them. I don't believe it will actually fully stop a semi, but it will make a lot of noise, and it will be very evident that you should not be in there anyway, besides the multiple gates that will be they'll be into before they even get to that arresting barrier. As far as what those crossovers will look like as you're approaching, this is up at Sunset Point as you're coming southbound. So there are a series of hybrid guide signs that actually have a dynamic message on them for open or close. So you can see that they look like almost of our generic exit signs, but you do see that there's an actual message sign in there for the open or close. So depending on which way we have those, we're using the flex lanes. You'll have the 1 mile, half mile, and the exit guide signs with those messages, the appropriate messages for the directional use on that. And then you can see also, this is going to show, okay, that is actually where the vehicle barrier will be right there. And you see that as you come into it, there's a series of gates this way. And then for the opposite direction, for the wrong way, there's also a series of gates for the opposite direction as well for when it's closed. So for the operations of the flex lanes, how are we going to operate these? So normal operations, they will be open to northbound traffic, basically Monday through Saturday, full time. And then we'll decide here as we're looking at traffic volumes, when on Saturday night to flop those lanes over and then open those lanes up to southbound for Sunday afternoon, especially. Holiday operations, again, we'll open those as dictated by the different holidays that we have available that are coming up. And then incident operations, if we have an accident, especially on that northbound side in the hill, can push everybody over onto the flex lanes while we're dealing with the accident on the northbound side, or even on the southbound side. If we have an accident in the general purpose lanes, push everybody into the flex lanes while we're dealing with the accident on the general purpose lanes. So these will be, as the name suggests, these are going to be very flexible use as to how we operate the directional on these lanes. So started construction really in earnest in September of 2022. And as I said, expected to go till 2025 for the full flex lane operation. Current activities we're still working on: earthwork, excavation, the rock blasting, paving right now on the southern segment. If anybody's been up there, they've noticed a lot of paving going on in the recent months. Still working on our drainage and bridge work as well. As far as blasting operations, the biggest portion of that is on the southbound flex lane portion right now. And you can see the mountain of aggregate we have at the top of the hill there at Sunset Point. Almost all of the aggregate being used on this job is actually being produced from this project, from the materials we're getting off this project. So our paving operation is actually stationed at Table Mesa Road on the east side, upstream there. Right now, there were a total of 70 of the rock blasts anticipated, and we've completed to date about 59 of those. So we're getting close to the end of our rock blasting finally on the project. And right now, to date, about 186,000 yards of rock have been blasted on this project. Now that doesn't include the rock that we were actually able to rip using conventional equipment as well. So there was a lot of that rock, but this is just the amount that we actually had to blast on the project. And that's kind of a little video of what that blast looked like. That was one of our first blasts. And just kind of moved the dirt a little bit, moved the rock and everything a little bit, but actually almost all of our blasts have really gone up very successfully on this project. We have not had any incidents. I'm going to keep knocking on wood that we continue that trend till the end. Some of the innovative things that we had to work through on the project. Existing concrete box culverts. Some of these box culverts have been out there 70 years. Not a lot of as-built were available for us on this, so hard to tell whether or not we had enough capacity to do the widening over top of the ends. But to remove one of those box culverts and build a new one would have been significant disruption to traffic. What we came up with, and the developer helped us through this process, it's actually a lightweight foam glass material. So basically, it's a manufactured pumice. High compressive strength, doesn't compact a lot, but what it allowed us to do was to not exceed the loading capacity of the box culverts and still put the widening of the lanes across the box culverts. And then we have also those box culverts were also extended. So the new extensions have the capacity, but not knowing what the old capacity of the structure was, this was a solution to not exceed the loading capacity on our box culverts. Paving. Another innovation that we're using on this project. The thickness of the AC on this project is not consistent throughout the project. Depending on where we are and what our subgrade values look like, our AC thickness is actually varying on this project. So the thinnest that we allowed on this project was 5 inches of AC, and then up to depending on what the modulus requires after that. Right now, of course, they're paving in the southern segment, and hopefully we'll keep on track with that, and we'll be able to open up those third general purpose lanes hopefully towards the end of this year on that up to Black Canyon City. So some of the current stats from the project as of about December. About 1.8 million yards of embankment, and we've moved about 1 million yards as of December on that. Equating that to a truck haul, almost 65,000 truckloads of material have been moved to date. Of the 395,000 tons of asphalt, about 75,000 have been placed to date. The final friction course layer, the half-inch lift of 47,000 tons, we should be starting that this spring. And then 10 of our bridge expansions are ongoing. And the Moores Gulch is the one new bridge that we're building southbound that replaces the old bridge. And then the one bridge that we have to start yet is the Bumblebee southbound, that TI bridge. That gets actually relocated. As of our construction status, as of June 2022, about 50% of our construction right now on the project complete. And then, like I said, hopefully getting that south segment open here in 2024, and then finally the flex lanes open here in 2025. As far as some of the things that we put in place to help deal with the construction traffic, our southbound lane closures, 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Saturday, to avoid that Sunday night southbound traffic coming from Flagstaff. And then for our northbound side, 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., also Sunday night through Friday morning. And then also nothing during weekends or holidays. That was something we wrote into the contract. And realistically, looking at how it's been going so far, and a lot of people that come up the northern area that I get to talk to have said that as big of a project as it is, they have been pleasantly surprised about how unrestricted it has actually been. So we're gonna keep our fingers crossed that also continues through the rest of the job as well. So primary takeaways for everybody. Yes, we are improving I-17 north of Phoenix, and we are open through construction through the weekends, holidays, and really the weeknight only lane closures.
Hello.
Some of our things that we put in for the contract as well. Contractor has to have can do only a 1 hour closure, full closure on the project, and then has to get traffic moving within an hour after the closure. And so I think so some people have gotten caught in those closures at night, but that's really the only way we can safely do those rock blasts. And open it to questions from anybody. All right.
Thank you, Andrew. Do any members have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. I was just on that road and you guys are doing a fantastic job. We didn't have any delays and it was a holiday weekend, so very excited about this whole project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 is the information about federal funding for building and energy codes. Stella Carr from ICC will provide the update. This item is for information and discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I able to share my screen to present some slides? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
All right, one moment. Great. Good afternoon again. I'm Stella Carr. I'm with the International Code Council and I'm our Energy and Resilience Project Manager. I actually went to ASU and used to live in Arizona, so I'm happy to be virtually back in the MAG office and presenting to you all. I work on our federal funding programs and help members and jurisdictions across the country that are interested in accessing federal grants as a way to improve their building code adoption and enforcement. So I am eager to share with you about the federal funding right now that's open, specifically through the BRIC program that FEMA runs. And at the end, I'll touch on some other opportunities that are currently available while I have your time as well. So you may be familiar with BRIC, which has been around for the past few years as a FEMA program, and they allocate funding every year. Traditionally, there's just sort of one pot of money, and building codes have been an eligible project along with other floodplain and building infrastructure improvements that help with resiliency. But this year, FEMA announced a specific $2 million set aside in addition to the other $2 million for each state that is eligible specifically for building code projects, which they're calling the Codes Plus Up. So there's $1 billion in total available through BRIC, but $2 million per state dedicated to building codes, as well as $25 million for tribes and communities across the US. And so we've seen successful BRIC applications in the past for building code projects, and we have many examples of what those look like. And we're eager to see how many more we have this year, given this $112 million for building codes. And so we're speaking with communities across the country, encouraging people to apply, because we haven't seen this level of funding from BRIC for building codes in the past, and we hope to continue seeing it in the future. Examples of what you can use the BRIC funding for to support building code adoption and enforcement activities include evaluating adoption and implementation of codes that reduce risk to your communities, enhancing existing adopted codes to incorporate more current requirements or higher standards, development of professional workforce capabilities through technical assistance and training. And what some of those costs might look like in tangibility are purchasing publications or digital licensing to codes, bringing code training and certification to your cities, and electronic permitting software, model code access, virtual inspection technology, other technology needed to improve your building's efficiency and operations, as well as costs associated with building department accreditation. Additionally, if you need to engage consulting services to support activities in your community related to building codes. These are all examples provided through FEMA in their FOA for building codes and things that you could use the funding to cover. Examples of projects that we've seen FEMA fund in the past have included some of the items you'll see on the screen here. And so we have examples of some previous applicants over the past 3 years. So you could see what what's in that application, how they sort of were successful with that. And we've also developed template application materials for several of these options if you're looking to get started and just sort of need a jumping off point with your application process. And we have other opportunities to help you if you're looking to get connected with any of the services that ICC might have to help get a quote so that you can properly budget for your grant. Eligible applicants for BRIC, for those of you that aren't familiar, state hazard mitigation offices, so Arizona Department of Emergency Management is the applicant to FEMA, and jurisdictions, whether it's a city, a town, a county, or another state agency, are the sub-applicant under the state, and the state submits all of the sub-applications, which they can have, sort of an endless amount of applications, but they have, $4 million all around. And so last we talked with the Department of Emergency Management, they had not yet received any building code activities. That was a couple of months ago, and the holidays have passed. So we aren't sure exactly where that $2 million stands right now in Arizona, but it's our belief that there's still opportunity because this hasn't been widely, publicized. People aren't super aware of it because it's a new program and the application has only been open for a few months. That being said, the application does close for states to submit to FEMA on February 29th. So the window of time, if Arizona Department of Emergency Management is still allowing you to submit a Codes Plus Up application or sub-application, you only have a few weeks left to do that before they have to send it in, and they might want you to send that in, as soon as possible, so they have time to review it. So this is an awesome opportunity if you're able to get in touch with them and sort of get your ducks in a row to submit an application for this round. That being said, BRIC program is something that we see on a cyclical basis. So this information is still relevant for next year. And again, the BRIC application for fiscal year 23 came out in October. So this coming fall, 2024, we can expect to see the BRIC program again, but we never know exactly how much money they're going to allocate because it depends on disaster declarations and different emergency funding that Congress has to allocate each year. Real quick, there are some other examples of things that you could use the funding for that ICC is involved with are listed here. And the other thing I wanted to mention, because this window for BRIC is closing for this fiscal year, but there are other applications for federal funding open right now through the Department of Energy, both from their from their state and community office, which they have IRA funding for building codes, more so on the energy code side of the house. And then there is the RECI grant, which will be opening soon from the Building Technology Office at DOE, which there is a RECI award that the City of Tucson and New Buildings Institute and ICC are working on, which many of the jurisdictions probably in this room and others in Arizona are connected with one way or another. And so that's a great example of how Arizona was able to secure some of these funding sources this past fiscal year in order to support building and energy code adoption in the state. But right now, the IRA funding has both the formula funding available as well as the competitive program, which they just announced a couple weeks ago. So after this, if you were to review these slides again, you could see that depending on sort of which codes you're looking to adopt and your jurisdiction's appetite for moving in a certain direction, there's different funding options available to fit your needs. So figuring out which one is right for you is important. But again, these deadlines are pretty quick. So if your community or the state agency that might have jurisdiction to propose this, even though it's a home rule state, it's a little different in Arizona. But I believe you need to submit the letter of intent to apply for the formula funding by January 31st. So if you might want to look into who would be eligible to submit that in Arizona and make sure that either an agency or your jurisdiction has submitted that if they're interested in applying for the formula funding. Additionally, the competitive program, which they released, is accepting concept paper submissions until February 9th. And then they're going to have the full application deadline in April. And they announced today that it's an ongoing rolling application in a sense. So they'll have this first wave of concept paper and then full applications. And then in the fall, they'll open it up again for another round of concept paper submissions and then full applications. So they're sort of separating it out that way. But this first round that they just released, again, the deadline is February 9th for concept papers. And if you do not submit a concept paper, you cannot submit a full application for that later deadline. And this sort of breaks down a little bit further the different IRA funding opportunities that I was just mentioning, depending on if you're a state or local government, sort of which pathway is best suited for your jurisdiction. I know that I covered a lot of probably new information for you all today, so I'm happy to spend a few minutes answering any questions that you might have. And I can also, I believe I shared with Scott some materials in addition to what I presented today, but I can send along these slides, which could hopefully be distributed to you all as well.
Thank you, Stella. Do any members have questions or comments?
So Stella, you said that in the next step, do I need to raise my hand? I'm sorry. Is the next step to contact you directly?
Yeah, so two things. If you're looking to apply for the BRIC funding, if you already have a contact or relationship with AZ Department of Emergency Management, I would also reach out to them to make sure that they'll still allow you to apply. And if you're able to apply, they'll still accept your application through FEMA Go. Then I would suggest reaching out to myself and we can help get you what you need to, work on an application in a short amount of time. But if the state won't accept your application, we wouldn't want to get your hopes up and help you do that for it to be rejected. So with BRIC, the internal deadlines are all up to the state. So every state has a different application deadline. And we've seen many states be flexible because of this new program. But because we're now coming down to the wire, so to speak, it may be too late. But again, if they haven't received enough applications to spend that $2 million, there's still, a hope and obligation that the state would accept them to maximize that allocation.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Stella? Okay, we'll move on.
Can I say real quick, Stella, please, if you can send me your presentation, we'll post it to our website along with the other presentations today, and then everybody will have access to the flow charts and everything.
Sure. And then I just wanted to real quick, my colleague Rick Bunser is on the line, I believe. If he could just introduce himself really quickly. That way you all know who he is, as he is our government relations manager that covers the state of Arizona.
Yes, everybody.
Thank you.
This is Rick. Glad to be a part of the presentation, Stella. Thank you. And I'm happy to share my information as well if we can be of service. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6 is a discussion about electric code issues found in the field by SRP inspectors. David Calhoun from SRP will lead the discussion.
All right, thank you, Chairman.
Stated, my name is David Calhoun with Salt River Project, and I am a metering supervisor over a group of fieldmen that go out and install and maintain our metering system. And I just wanted to basically, basically address this committee in an effort to try to establish an understanding of what your level of interest would be for some of the issues that we come across. And previously, Sharon Bonesteel had been a committee member, and I conveniently hijacked her card that was here. And she's since retired. And so I do not have her as a resource any longer. But a few years ago, we had some discussions to where she had directed me to this organization where we could present some of the issues that we find to hopefully get some kind of resolution for them. And there's a pretty broad spectrum of things that we come across, covering a lot of different issues. And we have no interest in becoming like the NEC police or anything like that. We don't have the scope or authority to do anything like that, but we do come across issues that are, access issues, are safety issues, code violations of various types that I would anticipate, the various AHJs would have a strong interest in addressing. So part of the complexity with that is the various AHJs have different levels of interest and it's, all the dynamics that we come across, it just makes it so much more complex. So this is just really an exploratory effort on my part to see, where we can go, because the relationship that I had with Sharon through the pandemic and her retirement, that kind of disappeared. And so just trying to see where we can go. I had presented delivered some slides to just give some examples of some of the things that we see. And this one is basically a job that came across my plate recently that re-triggered my attention in this direction. And this is just a small apartment complex where some contractors had been hired by the property management company to replace the load panels underneath the meters. And there was no city clearance, there was no SRP inspection done on any of these. And we do see these from time to time. Typically, they're found on small apartments, as in this case, or in single family homes. And sometimes when we come across them, they're quite old. It's been there for years, because we may go years before we come to a location and recognize that something's happened. So this was one that just recently came across our plate that we recognized like this, probably needs to be addressed. And I'm sure the city would, have an interest in coming across and taking a second look at this. And this did happen fairly recently, just this last year. Just to kind of zoom in and get a little more detail, for those of you that have the electrical background, the meter sockets here are 60 amp, ratings. They replaced the original load panels and put 100 amp load panels in there. There are actually 60 amp main breakers on these specific, examples, which, sounds good, but I would anticipate the city would still want to do a thorough inspection on this particular location. But this is just one example. Again, we see them on homes all the time where there would be, a very similar meter socket that has a small amperage rating and then up to a 200 amp load panel that's been installed that, the meter point or the point of delivery, ends up being the weak spot in the whole system. So something that definitely needs to be addressed. Moving on to some of the other issues that we have, access is a real big problem for us. And that's really, for being in the metering department, that's one of our big sticking points that we come across. And this particular example is just a meter room where, oftentimes we'll find meter rooms that have been pulling double duty as a storage closet or something to that effect. Some maintenance person somewhere has decided that's a great empty space to put all their stuff. And it's really a lot more common than we'd like to think it should be. I think this is probably an easy resolution as far as the city coming in and being able to address the customer with that. There's been times where I know personally that the managers of these locations have actually refused to move anything. Sometimes there's not a whole lot in there and our fieldmen can actually move things themselves, and again, broad spectrum of different situations that we come across. This is just one of the examples where it creates, clearance issues for us for working in, energized conductors, because for metering personnel, typically that's our work environment, is working on energized circuits. So, and it comes with the inherent hazards associated with that. Other access issues that we come across, this is more of an extreme one, I think, where, you can see from the big picture, it's just a big billboard and they put a brick wall just right around all the service equipment. And I don't even believe there's a door on this at that time. And unfortunately, these are just some pictures that I happen to have had collected over the years. I'm sure this has been resolved since then, but this is just, again, an example of access issues that we do come across when we show up and discover a situation that just seems rather unreasonable that the city would also, be interested in seeing and inspecting. Here's some residential examples of the wall being placed directly over the meter. Nobody is impacted by that except for the utility. But if there's ever a fire or anything like that at the location, pulling the power at the location from, the fire department becomes more of an issue. On the one in the middle, it's probably one of the less egregious issues that we come across where, it's just really tight workspace clearance. The one on the right, I think you can tell that's in somebody's bedroom now. They built a room around the back of the house and actually drywalled over the top of all of their service equipment. Some of the things that we see just are surprising. We'll leave it at that. But that's in somebody's bedroom now. And so that's one of the probably more serious and difficult situations to be able to address, but really just coming to this organization to try and get an understanding of what can be done for some of these situations, if not now, when and how. Here's an example where they built just a room across the back of the house. I unfortunately for the previous one didn't have any of the big pictures to show the full scope of it like this, but here's, access is again a problem, a room built around the whole back of the service equipment. And that's all I have, as far as examples to provide. But again, just to summarize the whole point of this is just to kind of establish a relationship with the committee. Sharon had said that, the HJs on the committee would be interested in trying to address some of these. Some of them are going to be easier than others, and some of them are going to be a significant challenge to get addressed. I know on some of the more severe examples, it would become a financial burden to be able to come in and try to make, immediate corrections on people. Some of these have been done by people that lived there before they got there. So to punish them and penalize them for something that, they're unaware of the code, restrictions, I understand it just complicates the whole matter. So if we can just reestablish some kind of a relationship and make some kind of progress on addressing these issues. I don't know if it's better for the individual AHJs to reach out to you individually or to come through this committee. Just I know from previous communications with Sharon, she had indicated that this would be a good avenue for us to address.
Thank you, David. Do any members have questions or comments?
Hello, this is Adrian. I just want to point out that we have a good relation with SRP on code-related issues. And question is, we normally communicate with Randy Miller. I don't know if that's the person assigned to our area, or there is someone else that we can communicate any field issues.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand all of what he was saying.
So my question is, there is someone designated for any specific area or?
Oh, within the project, yes. My specific areas in the West Valley within SRP territory, but we do have people that specifically would be able to send in these communications to the committee from different areas. So really, we have like 6 supervisors that manage 6 different groups, but we could have it collectively done where there was one point of contact. And again, we're just in the infancy of trying to establish this relationship and kind of exploring to see what that would look like.
All right, well, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
hey, just a comment for SRP there. I think it would be beneficial if they had, community contacts so that they could reach out when they did find something like that within the community. I know we have people in Tempe that are in place that would be that are there for this reason to, take complaints and solve these kinds of things. Taking it back to MAG, on a global scale may not get the same results. It's great that we find out about these things existing, but somehow we got to get it back to the AHJ to let them know that there's an issue within their jurisdiction.
So would you recommend that we perhaps, we have a city clearance desk where somebody manages that, but that's typically used for new construction. Would it be recommended that perhaps it go through that avenue?
Well, I would think that when you found an issue, say within Tempe, that we would provide a contact person where you could reach out and have direct contact and say, here's the address, here's the issue that we're finding, and we can dispatch somebody out to take a look at it.
So Mike, are you suggesting that the cities provide a contact to the SRP? That would be helpful, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Goodyear doesn't have any SRP locations. Sorry.
That's true.
Good idea, though.
But would you recommend that we just, I don't have any personal contact information for the city of Tempe or most of the jurisdictions on the committee. But, as far as just going online and looking through your building committee site page, I guess I'm kind of
I
lost.
would do this for you. I would make this suggestion. Make sure you leave the contact information with Scott there.
Okay.
And each of the jurisdictions that have SRP can reach back out to you and provide you that information that you need.
I can do that. I can send David's contact information to the whole committee. Request if you're in SRP territory that you contact him with the best contact person for issues like this. Additionally, in the agenda packet and on our website, we have a list of contacts for this committee. It's not every city in the region. It's probably 80%. So if you don't hear from anybody, you can at least get contacts from that list. So I can
Okay, great.
that list as well. And and everybody here knows everybody else. So if there's somebody who's not part of the committee, they may be able to get you in touch with another city if they're not on that list.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So I have a question. Is there somebody, so I'm from the East Valley, I'm from Gilbert. I would be interested in working with somebody specifically with SRP because I look at this as more of a dual issue. And rather than just SRP handing this off to the jurisdiction, this is an issue for you guys as well. This isn't just code violations on the jurisdictional end. Most of these are code violations for SRP as well. And so rather than SRP just handing off a problem to the jurisdiction, is there a way we can work with somebody with SRP in conjunction and together work through the issue?
Yeah, I think that would be the preferable route.
Right.
So I don't work in the East Valley at all, but that's definitely some contacts that we can make. So I can leave different SRP contacts with Scott, and we can just make an exchange on who the respective contact would be.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
If I can make another comment, I think what we're talking about probably sounds like it's going to work for what you're talking about. If there's ever an issue that you're seeing everywhere, a specific issue, same thing you're seeing everywhere, and you want to know if people are permitting it this way or anything like that, this would be a great forum for that because we strive to have consistency across code interpretations. For the specific issues, I think you would be best to work individually with the cities, but welcome to come back anytime if there's ever a larger global problem that everybody would be able to talk about.
Okay, I think one of the more universal issues that we come across would be the first example where load panels are exchanged, and we see that all across the valley. One of the problems that we've had up until this point, and it's going to be a change in culture and getting everybody used to having a leg to stand on that something can actually be done, because for so many years there was no real viable avenue for correction. So it's going to take some training on our part as well to get used to having a path to go down. So thank you, but I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for David? Okay, we will move on to item number 7 is a discussion about certificates of occupancy and differences among local jurisdictions. I will lead the discussion on that. Just a quick introduction. My name's Carl Montgomery. I'm the building official for the city of Surprise. I've been in that capacity for a little bit over a year now. Just a little bit of a history. We're in the middle of a computer system project currently, so we're looking at a lot of our processes. Currently, our C of Os are a manual process, and we started getting a lot of different projects that we haven't had before. We have some large townhome projects. We have bungalow-style apartments, a lot of condo projects, et cetera, that we hadn't really had before. And so questions came up about how we issue C of Os for that. So staff members wanted to possibly change the way we issue C of Os. Prior to making any changes, I wanted to survey the cities and see how consistent we are currently. So I reached out to Scott with the survey request and wanted to thank Scott for facilitating the survey and also thank everyone who answered the survey. I appreciate that. With that, I will start down the list, and if anyone would like to discuss or comment, that would be fine. Item number 1, the question number 1, what are the different types of C of Os that you provide? For certificate of completion, that's for a shell building. Typically, we had an 80% consistency that of cities surveyed that they issue C of Cs or certificate of completions on shell buildings. Item B, temporary C of Os to stock and train only. We had 60% consistency on jurisdictions issuing a stock and train only C of O. We had the next item C, temporary C of O to open. We had 100% consistency on that. All jurisdictions surveyed provide temporary C of Os to open. And the last one, item D, is the certificate of occupancy. We have 100% agreement on that. Item number 2, are there any additional types of C of Os? I think I may have mistyped on that. What I meant to say or meant to ask on that was, are there any additional fees for the different types of C of Os that you issue? I'll just say that we currently don't charge any additional fees for any of our C of Os that we issue. So that makes it pretty seamless when we're working on those, that we don't have to wait for the fees to be paid and all that. So item 3, do you include the business name on the C of O? There was 70% consistency with not including the business name on the C of O. Number 4, do you require a new C of O for every tenant change? There was 70% consistency with not issuing a C of O for every tenant change. I would like to comment that I appreciated the comment from Queen Creek regarding the discussion with the East Valley Partnership in 2013, requesting to cease this practice because it caused too many problems. I wasn't aware of that, and it was one of the changes I was considering making, and based on the responses and that comment particularly, I'm not considering that change anymore. I would like to just take a pause here for a minute to see if anybody has any comments or questions so far.
Chair, I have a comment. Recently, we do receive a lot of requests for business name to be included as C of O. Because of other state licenses, the health department licenses, they want to match business name with whatever they applied for their reasons. So we do have a practice to issue business name if they are providing us as the applicant. So I don't know if other jurisdiction facing the same request, but I would say last couple of years it's been more than ever. So.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions so far?
Carl, Goodyear has an amendment that we do require a C of O even with the name change only. And as far as the jurisdiction, it's been beneficial to when you discover something that's not an accurate business. When they say they're really not changing anything, it's like for like or whatever. And that's not what we're finding in the field. So they are doing work without permits, and this is our opportunity to catch that. So we do have an amendment that requires that.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, I'll move on to question number 5. How do we issue C of O for different types of projects? Item A, bungalow style apartments. These are kind of newer in the last couple of years. The jurisdictions issuing one C of O for the entire complex was, I'm sorry, 60% consistency for issuing a C of O to each unit. 60% consistency to each unit. 2 or 3 story garden style apartments. Item B, 1 C of O for the complex or 1 for each building. There was 100% consistency for issuing a C of O to each building. Item C, townhomes. 1 C of O for each townhome or 1 per building. This one was about 50-50. There's 50% consistency for issuing a C of O to each townhome and 50% to each building of townhomes. This was another one I was considering a change for possibly using our C of O, our blue tag that we have for residential. I haven't come to a final decision on that, but we do have a blue tag that we use for single family homes. Item D, 3 or more unit condo building, 1 for each condo or 1 per building. There was 60% consistency to issue 1 C of O per building. Item E, spec suite in a new commercial shell building that has obtained a C of C but has no tenant for the spec suite. 60% consistency to issue a C of C to the spec suite because there is no tenant. Item F, single family residential, 70% consistency with issuing a C of O for each single family home. Next item, if you issue a C of O to each dwelling unit, is it manual or automated? 70% manual issuance of C of Os for SFRs, 30% automated issuance of C of Os for SFRs. Next item is, do you use a tag for the C of O? 70% do not use a C of O tag or sticker. 30% use a C of O tag or sticker. We currently have a blue tag that we use for single family homes. Sometimes that is a little bit of a problem with the lending agencies because they want an actual certificate of occupancy. So I'm considering changing. Our blue tag right now does not say certificate of occupancy. It says final inspection approval. So I'm considering changing that blue tag for it to state certificate of occupancy, so it's clear that that's what that tag means. So we're currently looking at that right now. I'll take another pause here and see if anybody has any comments or questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment and a question. So first, the comment. You know, on the issue that you were considering regarding single family homes, you know, I do know that the lending agencies and the title agencies have some specific requirements to close on homes with certificates of occupancy. So we'd be happy to kind of survey our builders to figure out if that causes them any issues in closing homes, because, you know, the one thing that our members get very concerned about is things that inhibit their ability to close homes. And so that's where certificates of occupancy become quite important to us. So we'd be happy to look into that for you and at least give you the builder's perspective on that practice in particular.
Yeah, that would be great if I could get feedback. I already have the tags made up that say certificate of occupancy. I just haven't implemented it yet. So if you would get back to me on that, if that's, if they think that'll be an acceptable solution, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, we're happy to do that. And then second, my question, on those projects that you were talking about, whether it's the bungalow apartments or the townhomes or things like that, I think you asked the question, do you issue certificates for individual units or for entire buildings? the thing I'm curious about is, do municipalities allow phasing within those projects if you issue them on a building basis, or in other words, where you can kind of fence off a particular piece, build that, do a certificate while you do kind of the earthwork on the other parts of it, or what's the practice there?
Yes, that's
Well,
a,
if I may, excuse me, Steve Norton from Avondale. If I may add into that, that we here actually do phasing, particularly with the apartment buildings and such, because it's not easy for a developer to, you know, completely do the entire project and stuff like that. So we've done phasing in all kinds of different ways, depending on the project itself. The only ones we have the most difficulty with is the ones that are single units on a single lot. Let's say, because I have one right now, it's about 200 single family homes, but it's on one lot, which technically is commercial. So phasing on those gets a little bit more difficult, but we've really tried to work with the developer and their lender, because a lot of times the lender can do their phasing from their end as well. So we've had, you know, I'll tell you, we've had great success with it. And it's something that's, you know, I would hope everybody kind of looks at. And as far as single family homes goes, that's pretty, you know, if it's a single family home on a single lot, those are generally very easy to do. So yeah, that's it.
thank you. I would also comment as well that we do phasing on all those types of projects, the bungalow style apartments. We control the phasing through the clubhouse permit. Typically, we'll give a phasing approval, a temporary C of O for phase one, and then we just keep revising it for the additional phases that come through. So all of our townhome projects and the apartments all end up with a phasing plan so they can start to open some of those units, some of those buildings to the public prior to being 100% complete with the project.
Right. Goodyear similar with that. I hope I'm not talking too much. I'm sorry, but Goodyear holds the clubhouse or the amenity building hostage and keeps that building on a TCO while the phasing is going through the process. Bungalows don't get a C of O though, they get just a final inspection, which is similar to single family. And we don't really do C of Os for those unless the lending institution calls and says they need it, then we'll do it for that home. Because we found it's been VA loans typically that need that information. And as far as the apartment buildings, we've been allowing a phasing firewall to firewall. And that we've been doing an actual letter so that they're not paying the fee every 45 days. So we're just providing approval, here's the units, and then we get the floor plans for the building, fire department. And that's what we've been doing. So as long as there's life safety in place, we're working with people.
Thank you for that comment, Cheryl. As it relates to the bungalow style apartments, we are not issuing a C of O for each individual unit on those either. We issue a C of O to the entire project when it's done. We do the temporary C of O to control the phasing. And then when they get through their last phase, then we issue a full C of O for the entire project and not unit by unit on those particular projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will move on to question number 6. How are the C of Os issued? Is the process automated through your inspection computer system? 50% consistency with an automated issuance of C of Os. Item B, is the process manual with manual checks? 70% consistency on having some manual actions or checks required to get that C of O issued. Item C, are the C of Os emailed out? 60% consistency on emailing the C of O. And the last item, last question, do you state posting requirements on your C of O? There's 70% consistency on stating posting requirements on the C of O. With that, I'll open it up to any more questions or comments that anyone has. Okay, we'll move on to item 8. Please provide any updates to the MAG Building Codes Committee membership list to Scott Wilkin. Item number 9, please provide Scott Wilkin with any updates to the survey of code adoption. Are there any questions by a committee member for an item on a future agenda item?
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple things I want to mention. Turn it over to you. In the past, we have had a legislative update during legislative session. I did not know of any potential bills when writing the agenda. So I didn't include that, but I can include that on future agendas as needed. There was one bill that Randy brought to my attention. I'm going to send that out later this week, probably. I also know of an item that Cheryl has requested to put on a future agenda that we can't talk about it today because it's not on the agenda, but I will, we'll talk to her more about that later on. And then Jackson has been promoted to be rid of all of us. And he wants to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I guess when you were talking about it, I guess it probably falls within agenda item 8 or whatever it was, updates to the committee's roster. But no, I've moved on to a different role within the association. And so I wanted to come and just express my appreciation for working with all of you over the last 12 years or so. I've very much enjoyed being a part of this committee and the camaraderie and collaboration and occasional disagreement over some of the issues that we talked about. But I've always really enjoyed working with this group. And so I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. And thank you to Scott and Mary too for the work that you do in putting this all together and providing this forum. I also wanted to take the opportunity to introduce James Ashley, who's the new Director of Municipal Affairs. So he'll be working with all of you in the future on all the code issues for the home builders. Prior to joining the association, James spent a number of years in the Ducey administration running the Industrial Commission of Arizona. So for your purposes, he did all of your elevator inspections if you weren't in the city of Phoenix, and then also oversaw all of Arizona's workplace safety laws through ADOSH. And so we're very fortunate to have him, and he's learning the home building industry quite quickly. And so I'm sure that he will do a great job for us working with all of you. So thank you again, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jackson.
So what's your new role?
Our CEO retired after 36 years at the association. And so January 1 of 2023, the board asked me if I would take over as the CEO. Thank you.
Congratulations on that. Thank you.
Congratulations.
The next meeting of the Building Codes Committee is scheduled for Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 at 2 p.m. With no further business, today's meeting is adjourned.